Okay, welcome back, and as promised in this video we're going to be learning how to draw some stuff in Illustrator. We're going to be using the pen tool in this video, and so let's just get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and open up Illustrator, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. If I open up my zoom tool and just hold down the Alt key and then click a few times, then my space bar to grab my page and move it around, it'll zoom me out. Alternatively, I can zoom back in if I like. So as I mentioned, we're going to be using the pen tool, which is the very first tool in the drawing tools section of the toolbar here. And so I'll just grab that. Now, unfortunately for all of us, the pen tool in Illustrator does not work like a regular pen does in real life. In Illustrator, the pen tool works by laying down a series of points. Okay, and what that looks like is this. You click once, you lay down a point. You click again, and Illustrator will connect a line from your first point to the second point. Now notice that the first point is now turned white, the second one is blue. This is now an active point. So if I click again anywhere on the page, Illustrator will connect a line from that active point to a new active point and switch them. So now this one's deactivated and this one's now active. So again, if I click again, I'll get another point, and I'll get a new line connected between those points. Now, if I hover up here to the open-ended end of this first point that I drew, and I hover over it with my pen, I get this little circle that pops up next to my pen tool. And that shows me the Illustrator is recognizing that I do have an open-ended line here, and I'm trying to close it off. And that could be very helpful for what we're trying to do with this pen tool and learning how to draw in Illustrator with this pen tool. So let's just click that, and we're going to close off our line work. Okay? But now I want to edit some of these points, right? Because I'm trying to draw this rectangle, and it's a little wonky. It's a little bit screwy. It's crooked. It's, it's shorter on this side than it is on this side, and it definitely needs some editing. But if I go and try to click any one of these points, something weird happens. It deletes the point. So I'm going to just do Control Z to undo. And in fact, if I try to click again and do anything in here, it just continues to draw more points no matter what I do and draw more lines. So undo, 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 undo. So what I have to first do is I have to drop this pen tool. Now that I'm done making a sketch, I have to drop the pen tool. And the way to do that is to come over here to your selection tool and just click anywhere on the page, and it'll drop the tool and it'll get you back to where you started. Okay? So you're probably thinking, well, great, so now I can just grab one of these points and then move them and correct them and edit them. Well, no, because we're using the selection tool, the black arrow tool. When we click on the line work that we've drawn, we get this transform box. What this transform box allows us to do is transform the sketch that we've made. So we can stretch it up, we can stretch it down, we can stretch it right and stretch it left. We can scale the whole thing if we want, like this, using the corners. Okay. We can also, if we hover over that corner and just kind of rock our mouse back and forth, we'll get this activator, which is a rotator. So we can rotate our item, excuse me. If you happen to rotate off your page, Illustrator will adjust. That's where it's great to be able to hit the space bar and then adjust back into place with the hand tool. So let's just try to get ourselves back to straight where we started. Let's see here. About like that is fine. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So that's the transform box that comes up when you're using the direct select or the selection tool. Okay. And it's unfortunate it doesn't give us the action that we want. What we want to be able to do is select these points we just laid down and edit them and move them into position so that we can have a nice straight rectangle. So I'm going to go over here to the next arrow down. It's white, and it's called the direct selection tool. I'll click on that. This is the one that can actually select different segments of the line individually, and it can also select individual points on their own and allow you to stretch and pull just the individual points of a shape that you draw. See that? So I'll just selection box around it, and I'm going to try to just line this up straight. And I'll do my very best to just edit each one of these points so that I have something that looks a little bit more like a rectangle. Okay. Now that's pretty close, but definitely not close enough. The other thing to know about points is they do act individually. You can select, they act individually, they also act in groups. So if I selection box over a section of this line work where I know that there's 2 points, I get an interesting result. First of all, it activates both those 2 points, and you can tell because they're solid blue where the other 2 are white. And then it also changes my options bar, excuse me, let's select them again. It also changes my options bar up here to display the align tool. These little icons up here are all alignment tools. And you can also find those alignment tools if you go to Window, Align, and it will open up the Align toolbar down here. If you don't have it saved in your panels bar over here, it should show up just as like its own little box like this, and so you'll recognize these icons here are the same ones that's up here. And they've all become displayed because I've selected 2 anchor points. So now I can align those 2 anchor points to themselves. If I just go and do, like, say right here, if I hover over this one, horizontal alignment right, you see it will align those 2 and it will make that line perfectly straight. Alternatively, I can go up here and I can grab these 2 points by just selection boxing over those 2. And I can use these icons up here or these ones down here. They're both the same exact thing. It doesn't matter. So vertical align top. And you see the icon. It should make sense. It's pretty intuitive. It lines to the top. So I'll just click that. And there you go. It'll align those 2 like that. And I'll just continue to go around the box here. And I'll just use my alignment tool to align this edge, and then I'm going to use this direct selection to get those bottom 2 points, and I'll just align those 2 to the bottom. And then I'm done. Close that up. So there we go. Voila, I've now created a perfect rectangle from a pretty weird one that I drew originally. Okay? If I feel suddenly like I'm over this rectangle and I want to make it weird again, no problem. I can select these individual points and I can tweak it out all over again. All the time using my direct selection tool. Okay? Now, let's just undo that and get back to where we started. At any point that I want, maybe I want to scale this rectangle down. I've made this the exact shape that I want, but I want to scale it down smaller. I can go back to my main selection tool here. I can just click on the entire box. Holding down Shift and going from the corner in will give me a uniform scale. It'll keep the parameters of that rectangle, but allow me to scale it down. Whereas if I'm not holding down Shift, then when I go to scale it down, I have the option to pull it into a different shape like that. See, so that's uniform scale is the Shift button. Can be very helpful sometimes. Okay. I can go from the middle and holding Shift, I can scale the entire thing from the middle up, or alternatively I can flip it and go all the way through like that. If I want to make this thing into a skinny little bar, no problem, just grab the edge there and pull it over like that. And if I want to go back to where I started, no problem. I can just get right back up here and scale it out to whatever it was. Okay, so that's just a little indication of the difference between the selection tool and the direct selection tool. The other thing the selection tool can do is once you have something selected, you can move it as a whole, see, like this. Whereas if you try to do that with the direct selection tool, it's very hard sometimes to click on just a line. You're going to get just that line that you've clicked on, and everything else is going to adjust and go off on you again. So I'll just undo to get back to where we started. Okay, so there we go. So we've started to learn about the pen tool. We're using points. We want to be able to edit those points. The way to edit those points is with the direct selection tool. We're going to be making shapes. Hopefully they're going to be closed loop shapes. The way to edit and scale those is with our selection tool up here in the top. Okay, so let's just continue to play around with drawing straight lines and then using these 2 selection tools up on top. Let's edit some of those points and play around with scaling what we draw and just try to get familiar with this new method of drawing, because unfortunately, as I mentioned at the start of this video, this pen tool is a little bit challenging for new users. It's definitely not like using a real pen in real life. And so it's going to take some getting used to, and we want to get comfortable with that. Okay, so in our next video, I'm going to teach you guys how to continue to draw some more basic geometric shapes. We're going to be using the rectangle tool here, and we're also going to be diving into a lot of the other shapes that are available to us underneath the rectangle tool. Then we're also going to be learning how to make some curves in Illustrator as well, which comes along with its own very specific and semi-frustrating set of tools and techniques to get right. So anyway, stay tuned, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.